simple definition of enharmonic pitches. Yes?
Two names for the same note.
Two names for the same note. Exactly right. So, if you know where a B is, if you're looking at that piano keyboard there down in the middle of 62, you know where a B is, and you're asked to play a B sharp. Then, of course, it's just the next white key to the right, the one that we also call C. The same thing with E to E sharp. E sharp is the white key we usually call F. C flat and C are the same. We do that the same way as we do F flat and F. So down on the bottom, you see the enharmonic qualities. Now, remind me again, and I know that those of you who are in here every day have reminded me like every day, but there are different people. So remind me again, what kind of tuning is the only kind of tuning that we would ever use in harmonics? Yes. Temper tuning is correct. Very good. Temper tuning is correct. In pure tuning, which bands and orchestras play in and choirs sing in, we would actually have a little bit different spot on our slide or a little bit different spot with the finger for B sharp. But we can't we can't add that key to the piano, or the piano would be like twice as long. And so that's the only time. All right, now fortunately on page 63, if I made some mark on your test about the useless top ledger line or the useless bottom ledger line, fortunately I did not actually take any points off on your test. That's a good thing because you hadn't learned it yet unless you had read ahead. But here it is right there. Notice all of the pitches that are on the top of the staff have a piece of the note head as its highest member. There are not any ledger lines that are taller than any of the notes above the staff. Same way with below the staff. There are no ledger lines farther down than the note head. And then as you see right there in the middle, it says this, not that. Take a look at those examples and see where they're missing. All right, now, those of you who haven't thought about this before, and piano players have, notice how far down the treble clef really goes. All of the pitches that you see there are the exact same pitch. Right? The F in the bass clef is the same note as the F that altos would often read. The G in the bass clef is the same note as the G the altos would often read, and then go all the way up. Tenors might sing an F and a G in the bass clef, but really they are treble clef notes just written in the bass clef. Right? All right, and some of us got caught on our test before when it said do 4 different notes or 4 notes in 4 different places. Some of us wrote a D above the staff in the bass clef and also a D below the staff in treble clef, which is it's the same place, so you didn't actually get 4 different places. So you got dinged on that one. The octave sign is a very, very useful tool. The octave sign is, when it means octave above, it's 8VA. And by the way, that is just a matter of coincidence. I don't believe the word in Italian is above, but 8VA is just easier to remember, I think. If it says 8VA, that means it's an octave above, all right? So if you have something that you would really like to write very high on the piano, it is sometimes a much better idea, also for violins as well, to write it with an octave sign, 8VA, and then you draw a dotted line until you want them no longer to be an octave higher. There other signs, let's go octave below. Some people do this differently than others. The official sign is 8VB. And again, the B is an Italian word. It is not the word below, but it's just easier to remember that. If you see 8VB, it means an octave below. So when you want Matt Webb to sing really, really low, you can write him a bass part like that and write 8VB.
Oh my gosh.
Now,
Matt, you got that?
yeah, he's got that. By the way, if you smoke a cigar and drinks a straight shot of scotch, only works for a little while though. You have to keep smoking the cigar and drinking the whiskey. If it's a very long song, you can't finish usually. But
Hey guys, let me just smoke this real quick and I'm gonna continue.
so there are people who write 8VA and then use the word below underneath that. I'm not sure why they do that, but you will see that occasionally. Another term is bassa, B-A-S-S-A, also means below. And you can abbreviate that just with the B, 8B. Now this next thing is fairly important, I think. I do have to occasionally use it. At one time or another, I have sworn up and down that it really wasn't necessary. However, many of you will do interesting things with music and instruments such as perhaps an electronic keyboard, and it is really important that we know what C we're talking about or what D we're talking about. So there is an octave identification. Here's some things that you really want to remember. C4 is middle C. Okay? C4 is middle C. C1 is the lowest C on the piano, and you'll notice that there are only two other white keys below it. That's A and B, and those keys are generally the most worthless two keys on the piano. They're not so useless on a grand because there's enough area to stretch the string out so that it has a tone. But on an upright, they wrap the string so many times that when you play those A and B on an upright, it's just mostly a bunch of rattle. It's hard to tell. But those, just for your information, would be A and B 0. It would be A and B 0. Then we have C1, and be aware that every single note on the piano has some identification. So the C sharp above C1 is obviously called C sharp 1. And everything in that octave is that name plus 1 until you get to the next C, and that is C2. Now here's some of the things that you might use this for. And I have gotten into it a couple of times on a piano like this. There will be times when somebody transposes something. I don't know whether they do it on purpose or are just jacking around with buttons, and pretty soon it's not the right, when you push the key down, it doesn't play the right key anymore. It plays something either lower or higher. And so you have to retranspose that to the right key, and at that point you need to touch C and then dial it up so it says C4. And then it will match C4 to that key. Okay? Now, I hope this never happens to the rest of you, but there's another reason why I often had to use this. When synthesizers first came out, probably just so that they were easy to carry or cheaper, it could be, but the keyboard was only this long, not a full-size keyboard. And so you had a choice if you were gigging with that particular synthesizer. You had a choice of playing high notes or low notes, and it was not possible to play them both. And so you had to determine what you wanted this C down here, the lowest note given to you, what that would be. If you chose C1, then that it would play C1, C1, the lowest C you could get on a piano, and you would play those notes in corresponding, but you'd run out of notes when you get up here. And basically the reason it didn't matter is because those synthesizers were for recording purposes, so you recorded the left hand first, so you made it C1 first, and then you played all the left hands. Then you got to a second track, and you changed this C1 down here to say maybe C3. So middle C was only this far up, and then there were 3 more C's up here this way, and so then you played or recorded the right hand portion on another track. And so it is important to know, in fact, and I don't know if they still do this anymore, I had one weekend of a seminar on programming synthesizers, and that was so long ago that I'm sure even the word synthesizer probably spelled different now. But each key had a digital code because, and you don't realize this because you were born long after it changed to digital, but it used to be analog, and it was a really big thing when you could make a number and it would make a sound. And people just really, for no good reason at all, we all just sat around and threw wild numbers on just to see what that would sound like. But when it is a lesser, I guess I should say, when your limitations are a little bit different, you actually write into the keyboard or the synthesizer a name for the sound that you want. For instance, if you want it to sound middle C, and you want it to sound like a car horn, that had each of those things had a digital had a number. So you would type in C4, which meant whenever I push middle C, and then you might type 38, which would be the base for the sound of a car horn. And so if you programmed in there C438, that would be, that would be a car horn on middle C. So it might be nice for everybody to know how far the numbering system goes. Take a look at all the numbers around on those 2 pages for just a second. Keep in mind that any C starts a new number, and any B is the last of that same number. Does that make sense? So the 4 octave is everything from middle C to the B above it. Okay? All right, now we're going to talk about stems, and I think I spoke to you just a bit about it before. I'm not really sure if you are the same people that were here when I spoke of it before. So I'll speak of it again. But the purposes of stems, does anybody remember what or I shouldn't say the purpose of stems, but the purpose of choosing which way the stems go has to do with what? What's that? That's correct. A better way to put that is our attempt